This lecture on counseling research is going to be discussing mixed method designs and action research. Some of the objectives, as we'll be looking at the foundational elements of mixed methods, we'll differentiate between common facets of mix and various types of mixed methods. We're going to distinguish between common sampling methods for mixed methods. And then we're going to actually be looking at something that's new in counseling research, and that is action research. So we'll be talking a little bit about the history, the principles, and the key terms with action research. So this, again, we're looking at mixed methods. Now, we've already talked about qualitative and quantitative. We've been we've talked a lot about that. And so a lot of this is going to be very redundant because we're talking about mixing the two. And in some areas, mixing the two really works out very well. You might want to do some numerical data, but the subject is so interesting, you also want to do a little narrative and writing and observations and those type things. Most studies are not mixed just because it takes a lot of time and it's a lot of trouble. But so a lot of these are going to sound these definitions are going to sound exactly like the ones we talked about for the individual methods. So a hypothesis, we've already said it's a declaration statement of the relationship between two or more variables. It is your guess. Methodology, the application of particular procedures toward acquiring the answers to a wide variety of research questions. A little bit difference of methodology. Your research questions include both. And then with this design, it's the researcher employs both quantitative and qualitative research methods. So you're doing two different types of data analysis. Your population, it could be an entire unit, a group, it could be an individual, it could be single case, it could be all clients, all employees. Your population could be very different according to your choice. A purposeful sample, if you're going to do both, if you're going to include both methods, you're going to have to be purposeful with your sample. It's not quite as wide if you're doing quantitative alone. And then remember if you're doing qualitative, there are going to be some aspects about that are going to be very narrative and observation and require you to do things differently if you were just doing quantitative alone. Some more definitions, your research questions. In a mixed method design, you're identifying the research question that has the benefit of assisting you in determining how quantitative and qualitative methods will be used. So your research question is going to have to include both of the issues with your methods. The sample would be a subset of the larger population, like it always is. And you're going to have to really keep in mind triangulation. With quantitative triangulation, it's not nearly as important. But when you're doing qualitative, you're going to have to if you're going to add that in and you want it to be trustworthy, you're going to have to make sure you use lots of different data sources. Some considerations about using a mixed method. You're going to have to decide what order you're going to implement it. Are you going to do the qualitative first Are you going to do the quantitative first? Are you going to do them both at the same time? How are you going to share this, including both of them? You're going to have to determine the weight that will be given to the quantitative and qualitative. Which one are you going to make more important? Most people really give the importance to the quantitative, and qualitative is just lagniappe. It's just something extra. Oh, by the way, we also looked at this. We find this pretty fascinating. And we add that along with that. Determine how the two types of data are going to be mixed and combined, and determine the theory that will guide your design. So I'm not talking a lot about mixed methods because, again, we've said so much about both. It's just combining the two. Now I'm going to share a little bit about action research. I am not an expert in action research. It has been added to research material in the past few years. And it's something that I think we're all understanding about it. It's a scientific method with an emphasis on field methods. And by field methods, I'm kind of talking about your reflection on the data. It's used out in the field. It looks at the community. It looks at your stakeholders. It looks at how you personally can change a situation or a problem. It's a cyclical process with problem identification, data collection and analysis, reflection on the data, and a revised action plan informed from the previous research cycle. So the main difference with this is not only are you going to do the study, but you are planning from the very beginning how you're going to get involved and change the results. An equal power dynamic between the researcher and the participants, where participants are seen as experts and are consulted for their practical knowledge. By this, I mean, you want to make a change in your community. There's an area in your community that you feel like you could do some research on and change. You want the mayor involved. You want the city council involved. Maybe you want the park people involved. So it's a real dynamic between the researcher and the participants. Multiple agreement between the participants. What is the problem? You may see it as a problem for the community. What if all these individuals don't see it as a problem? You really don't have the right or the privilege to go in and say, oh, this needs to be changed, unless they are actual participants in this. Steps to action research, you first identify the problem. Let's see. If I put down the relationship between counselor burnout and the workplace. Let's say you've decided that's going to be a problem. You identify a focus or a problem area, and then you collect and analyze data. You interpret results, and you disseminate the findings. And then you reflect on the results. You think about, okay, these are the results. How can I put this into action? You're not just bringing the data out for people to understand and go, oh, wow, okay, in the future, we can use this for prediction. You're actually coming up with a plan to use your research, and then you take new action. And then, as far as action research is concerned, you come up with another problem that you feel like you could be a part of making better, and you repeat the cycle.